I'm bringing Edudzi on this matter because the Chief Justice was quite clear, and we'll put that on the screen. The 4 reasons why the suspended Chief Justice did this press conference, as she put out herself. These were the 4 reasons. They said the removal process is historic with higher stakes, but then again, the position is that this process has been reduced to ordinary litigation between the petitioners and herself. The process itself is flawed. It violates the Constitution, and the manner in which it's being done breaks every rule on how justice is to be delivered. 2, the far-reaching implications of the process goes beyond her, and its effect reaches beyond her as an individual. And the alleged constitutional violations and illegalities of the proceedings, as she put out there, about her lawyer not being admitted before the committee because she didn't accompany him, and the family and so on. And then the final one about the calls for resignation says it's not on the table, and the alleged threats on her life. She put that there as well, that her resignation will be an admission that this flawed process is acceptable. This entire secrecy of this says it's not meant to pursue an agenda. Has this press conference done any good from what you said?
Okay, so it's quite an interesting issue. First of all, I mean, like any other Ghanaian, you can call the press and speak to them on anything that you feel strongly about. So her right to address the press is not something that you can take away from her. That is within her so to do. Mm-hmm. But what she's not permitted to do is to use the processes of a press conference to undermine a constitutionally sanctioned process. I've always maintained that in the wisdom of the framers of the 1992 Constitution, and I say this with all humility, I am not in position to say I am wiser and more intelligent than the people who put the 1992 Constitution together. No, I say this with all humility. In the wisdom of the framers of the 1992 Constitution, they envisage that the Chief Justice can be removed and proscribe or possibly prescribed the method or the procedure for doing same. Chief Justice Tokono is not the first person to have had that process triggered against him or her. Why? In 1995-96, the Ghana Bar Association, the Urban case.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they use a different process, litigation, to achieve the very end of removal. And that is why if you look at the Ghana Bar Association Attorney General, the Urban case, His Lordship Justice Kwega deprecated the conduct of the Ghana Bar Association. Because what the Ghana Bar Association then sought to do was to put the grounds for the removal in a writ. And so as to put the whole matter in public, a clever way of circumventing the secrecy proceedings. His Lordship Justice Ajabin, Justice Kwega and co. said, look, the Association of Lawyers should know better. And then underscored the constitutional reason for the secrecy of the proceedings. And said that the reason for the secrecy is actually to protect the judiciary itself. Imagine a judge goes through the removal process, televised on the tele. Under cross-examination, lawyers can ask all kinds of questions, related, unrelated, even relevant, irrelevant. Say for the judge to say, no, this question, by which time he had asked already. We all do that under cross-examination. We deliberately will ask a question, knowing that this question is not permissible, but to color the mind of the court. Then the judge will say no, or counsel would have to object. Then the judge will say, question overruled. Ask another question. We do that all the time. So in the wisdom of the framers of the Constitution, they wanted a process that would also ensure that you protect the persons involved. Because it may well be that after the proceeding, the person will not actually be guilty of what you are saying.
But everything would have been out there.
Everything would have been out there. So I found it extremely, in fact, I want to be charitable by saying that it's untenable. Professor Kweku says I shouldn't say it's untenable. And that is plain illegality.
Why
what the Chief Justice did.
Why is it plain illegality?
Because you see, cleverly, she puts the content of the petition in public and try to excite a public conversation on the merits, which invariably would defeat the constitutional reason for the in-camera hearing. I don't think. Look, I think that she's ably represented by lawyers. My senior, lawyer Ayuku Otu, is not a lawyer of mean standing. A very respected lawyer, a man who had risen to the topmost position in Ghana. That is, the office of Attorney General for us among lawyers. To rise to the position of Attorney General, it's not a mean thing. That is the position he got to. She is represented by such a person. What kind of argument that my senior, Ayiko Otu, cannot put before a 5-member committee? In the wisdom of the framers of the Constitution, they wanted at least 2 senior judges to be on that committee. So you let's even say, you do not trust the appreciation of law by Daniel Domelebo and the other 2 on the committee. What about Justice Asiedu? What about Puaman? Is it not curious? When Vincent Asifua issued the writ naming the Attorney General as the defendant, challenging the President's reference to the Council of State, Her Ladyship Justice Tokonu empaneled 5 judges to hear the Vincent Asifua matter. Justice Asiedu was one of them. Is she her case? That at the time when she put Justice Asiedu to be among the 5 judges to hear the Vincent Asifua matter until it was reconstituted, she never trusted his judicial independence, his judicial mind, and that he had cause to believe that Justice Asiedu does not appreciate the judicial oath that he took. Where from this hypocrisy and double standard? You put Asiedu on the writ that claimed that the President ought to have notified you. You remember that incident? Asiedu was there. Who empaneled Asiedu? It was Justice Tokonu. Is it not the same Asiedu that President Mahama had put on the 5-member committee to investigate the claims against you? How come that suddenly she no longer trusts the mind of Justice Asiedu? What changed? There are many instances that she had put Justice Puaman on panels. Having become the Chief Justice of this Republic, she never trusted Puaman's judicial mind. I mean, so where from this hypocrisy? I find it extremely, extremely uncomfortable even discussing this. Look, I have avoided, for obvious reasons, a merit review of the allegations against her. For good reasons. I've restrained myself, all my public commentary. I've always dealt with the legal issues on this matter. She knows. Like she pointed out, the law is the law. I've appeared before her. I wasn't happy with some of the decisions. But like again, I took it that the law is the law. And went home crying. Look, there's something that she did that I find it extremely, extremely, maybe uncalled for.
Why?
But mischievous.
What exactly are you
And
talking
at that
about?
point, I thought she was doing politics.
What exactly?
You see, she made an attempt to try and link the current proceedings to the unfortunate, insane, and dastardly murder of the High Court judges and the army officer. But try drawing a parallel between the fact that the proceedings are happening at Edu Lodge and the events of 1982. What did she do? Cleverly, she says that why is the proceedings happening in Edu Lodge? And claim and then created a false narrative that the unfortunate murder of the judges and the military officer was planned and executed with Edu Lodge in mind. Complete falsehood. Look, I have a copy of the SIB report, the 85-page report, and the Attorney General's comment, 23 pages, were made. If you read the SIB report, there were effectively 3 references to Edu Lodge in the report. The executive summary. In the executive summary at point 7.
While you access that, let's hear exactly what the Chief Justice Gato Tukono reference on this Edu Lodge within their press conference. Take a look at this.
Edu Lodge facility that the hearings are being conducted in featured very prominently in the planning of the murder of judges on June 30th, 1981. And this can be read about in the special investigative report on that terrible event in our nation's history. It will be recalled that there was a Major Samakwa, a military officer who was killed with the 3 High Court justices, who was the Director of Human Resource of GEHOG. He was my uncle and my guardian when I entered the University of Ghana in September 1980. I was also living with him at the time he was abducted and murdered. Was Edu Lodge chosen for my inquiry to make me feel insecure? I think so. And I continue to hold the view that there's no reason why a judicial hearing is being conducted behind the high walls.
Well, so that's the reference to Edu Lodge. They say it's featured prominently. These were her words in there.
First of all, the record shows this insane and unfortunate murder of the judges happened in June 1982. Correct, Senior? Good. Look, the same SIB report that she referenced, the executive summary, paragraph 9. Amatekwe and Captain Kojochikata retired met at Edu Lodge on 31st October 1982. 31st October 1982.
This is a Special Investigation Board report.
Yes. Executive summary, paragraph 9.
Paragraph 9.
Is there. So how did this feature in the planning of the murder? How? A murder that took place in June. The Special Investigative Body, established by PNDC Law 15, started this work. It was in the process of its work, left for it to submit its report, that Captain Retired Kojochikata met Joachim Amatekwe in October at Edu Lodge. October. By which time the murder had already taken place. Why would you think that Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice, would want to twist these facts? Is to basically draw herself into an event that happened 43 years ago to play on the emotional keyboards of our people. What has that got to do? Event that happened in 1982, anybody envisaged that today, having become the Chief Justice, there will be any petition that would require an inquiry against you?
Well, she said it featured prominently. Her uncle was in there. She was living with the uncle when the uncle was abducted.
You see, hold on. One of the things I've always avoided publicly is a commentary on the murder of the judges and the ex-serviceman. For obvious reason. Because you see, it invokes sensibilities. And you see, for us as lawyers, every 31st June, we do the Martyrs' Day, 30th of June, we do the Martyrs' Day celebration. We'll go to church, we do all those things in remembrance of that dastardly act. And for us never to get there. But you see, if you read the confession statement of Joachim Amatekwe, he provided the context or the reason for that insane, excuse my language, stupid decision of his. It's there. It's in the report. Whereupon he makes the point that as union leader for GIHOC, his boss, director HR at that time, was Major Samakwa, who happens to be the uncle, as her ladyship, the Chief Justice referenced. And that he was dismissed after they engaged in demonstration or something. And thereafter, because you are the head of personnel, he sanctioned his dismissal. So when the PNDC came, Amatekwe conveniently joined the PNDC to get back at this and says he went to court. When he went to court to challenge his dismissal, the judge who sat on it was Cecilia Kranche Ado. And said when he lost the case and came back and informed the wife that the case he took to court, he had lost it. The wife, who was pregnant, had a miscarriage. And that was when set off all this. It's all in his confession statement. Our country has traveled a path that we have all said we will not go there again. Why throw in this in an inquiry as to whether your conduct A, B, C, D meets the constitutional threshold for your removal? What has the events of 1982, 43 years ago, got to do? Unless, of course, to do politics. And you see, for a young man like me associated with the NDC, first of all, these events happened. I'm sure I didn't even have the mind to even appreciate them. When these events happened, where was the NDC? Where was President Mahama? Was there even anything called NDC? No. So to try to link it today, after 43 years, and said the choice of Edu Lodge was to remind you. I mean, how can you even say that?
Well,
with respect. How can you do that? Unless, of course, you are doing politics with the proceedings involving you. And look, I have told our party communicator, avoid discussing the merit of this matter for a simple reason. One, none of the petitioners is a card-bearing member of the NDC. None whatsoever. The panel members, none of them is a card-bearing member of the NDC. Let me point this. It is sad that President Mahama finds himself in the position of Pontius Pilate. Yes. President Mahama finds himself in the position of Pontius Pilate, where he has to receive the petition from the Pharisees and Sadducees. That is why President Mahama finds himself. But you see, the Constitution itself has some insulation for such situation. It said, don't take that decision yourself. Consult the elders. Consult the members of the Council of State. President Mahama has the history of having used Article 146 before. Loretta Lamptey, the shroud boss. The process for her removal, among others, happened under the tenure of President Mahama. Loretta Lamptey was appointed by President Mills, an NDC appointee. But when my friend Richard Nyama and Anodompre brought the petition to MPP store, unlike these petitioners, when they brought the petition against Loretta Lamptey, President Mahama didn't say they are MPP people, so they should clear off. He said, I have taken an oath to uphold the laws of this country, which includes Article 146. Saw the process through. 2015 January, President Mahama suspended Vivian Lamptey, who was going through this impeachment process. How different is it from what has happened today? So how in God's name...
Well, she said the entire process is unconstitutional. In fact, the manner in which it's being done breaks...
Do you know that as High Court judge,
justice is delivered?
The High Court judges that were implicated in Anna's matter were not taken through Article 146. Justice Derry, Justice Paul Derry, Ado, Esel, the latest, many of them, they went through Article 1. It's a leadership, the Chief Justice said, that if there are grounds for her removal as stipulated, was there any other special proceeding for her? I've been struggling. And look, the matters that she raised in the press conference are matters that are addressable through judicial process. For instance, and my senior year will teach us, and they have been teaching us. If your claim is that the petition or the organization is without locus, it's not registered through your search, that's grounds for your lawyer to raise an objection as to capacity. Any one of us here, if we accept a copy of a writ and it's an organization, the first thing we do is to do a search at the Registrar General.